storms. Their giant shoebox. So springtime's coming up, Lent's about halfway through, it's getting nice outside. I know what you guys are all asking yourself. What's going on with the Eastern European economy, Blair? Well, I'll tell you what's going on with the Eastern European economy. So right now, here in the States, we've got the whole stimulus package thing, and Obama's giving a bunch of money to a bunch of people to hope it's going to make stuff work. And it's not really working, but we sort of committed to it, so we can't go back now. Well, the United States isn't the only place that's happening, so you can't completely blame Obama or his administration or Americans or whatever for the idea, because it's something that a lot of people have been doing. And Keynesian economics is pretty popular, but one place that's really interesting where it's happening is Eastern Europe right now. So if you don't care about Eastern Europe, you should probably turn off the video right now if you haven't already turned it off a while ago. But if you do care, it's actually pretty interesting what's going on there right now. So, you know how when the housing industry collapsed, all the other industries in the United States collapsed because they couldn't get loans and they were so much relying on everyone else? Well, Eastern Europe and Western Europe are a lot like that, where they're so interconnected that if one of them failed, the other would probably fail as well. Western Europe's always been a lot more productive than Eastern Europe has, and so they're in a position now where they're really concerned about the survival of Eastern Europe. So they put together their own stimulus package to sort of take care of Eastern Europe. Now the stimulus package is essentially the same thing our stimulus package here does, is give them a lot of money and hope they spend it on stuff and hope their industry keeps running. But unlike the United States, there's a lot of reasons that I think it's going to work really, really well in Eastern Europe. There's three big ones. First of all, oil prices are down. Second of all, they have a lot of property that's almost developed, or developments that just got stopped for whatever reason. And finally, because people are going to go to school a lot more. So I guess I'll start with the idea that oil prices are going down. Now, it might seem weird to say that oil prices going down are going to have a really positive effect on an economy that's largely based on the sale of oil and oil production. But if you look at the Eastern European economy, there are a lot of what they're called oil-rich nations. Now, nations is first, second, or third world, depending on how they developed, what kind of infrastructure they have, what kind of economy they have. Well, the idea of oil-rich nations are kind of like that, but instead of having all the time to develop and understand how to use their economic resources and to use their natural resources, like places like America or Canada or most of Western Europe did, these oil-rich nations are just bam, here's a bunch of resources we can use and a bunch of money. And it's sort of like giving a kid $1 million. He's going to go spend it on a bunch of candy and not be responsible and invest for his future. Not that I ever condone the spending of money on candy. I generally think that's a great idea. But not in the case of a whole nation spending all their money on things like candy. Not that I know a document. Anyways, so there are these oil-rich nations. And when all this money came into oil, there's a bunch of criminals that were in power because everything was really poopy over there and everyone was getting in fights, and so they all turned to this mafia. And this mafia wasn't a big deal when they didn't have a lot of money because there wasn't a lot of power to be had. But when they got all this oil, all the money went to the mafias because the mafias essentially owned everything. And so now not only do you have mafias, who can do stuff here and there, you've got mafias with billions and billions of dollars, so it's pretty much organized crime controlling the wealth of the entire country, which leads all the industries in the country to rely on that wealth, and all the industries in the country end up relying on that corrupt means, and relying on essentially organized crime bosses to control the prosperity of their nation and prosperity of their businesses. So these businesses start to but now that oil prices are going down, these organized crime and this corruption is going to go down because they're not going to be funded the way they were. We're going to have to go back to local business and back to a much more agricultural-based economy. So assuming that the stimulus works, not only will they have the stimulus money, but other countries and other companies and stuff will be much more likely to invest because they haven't been investing before because it's so corrupt that you never know where your money's going to go. But now that they know and have this reassurance that it's not going to be as corrupt of a system, they're going to be more likely to give money in the future, not just a stimulus package. So that's good in the long run, and that's good for the actual structure. We have to look at the workers now, the actual people in it, and there's two big things right now that are affecting the workers. Now, essentially, Russia is very polarized as far as its wealth. So you're either, in the upper, I guess, really you're either in the upper echelon or the lower echelon of economic situation, or you're either a worker guy or a doer administrator stuff guy or girl. I'm not gonna be sexist here. And so we can see right now there's something that's being really positive for both those groups. So start with the lower classes, the less educated workers. Now, if you know anything about Eastern Europe, you know there's a whole bunch of economies and businesses and governments, Soviet Union, that completely collapsed. When all these businesses and stuff collapsed, they thought they were going to be really, really awesome for a long time. So like, let's build a whole bunch of shit, and then we'll fill it all up with businesses and stuff and be really awesome. But then it turns out that didn't work out for them. They were just mostly done with building a whole bunch of buildings and building a whole bunch of ways to extract natural resources and building a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be productive, later, but they just didn't have enough money to finish it. So it just sits there, almost done. And so unlike here in the United States where we put stimulus money into stuff, we're going to have to spend it like to completely rebuild, whether it's the green technology or whether it's our green jobs or however that's termed. But they essentially just got to finish up on stuff. It's like they already have the cake, they just have to put the icing on and sell it. And so that works pretty well for them in that nature. And so they're going to have a lot of these lower skill set workers who are going to be able to spend their time fixing up those buildings. They're going to have jobs for a long time within the lower class of the workers. This will trickle up through the economy, spending money at local businesses. Those local businesses will be more successful. When those local businesses are more successful, banks will get their loans paid back. When banks get their loans paid back, they'll be able to give out more loans. When they give out more loans, more businesses will become productive. It's good all around. So it's really good for the lower class workers, but the problem is that right now there's no jobs for these upper class workers who have basic college educations and stuff. Now, the interesting response they've had to not having these jobs is, well, if I can't have a job, I might as well increase my skill set. So a lot of them are going to college. The enrollment in postgraduate degree programs in most of the Eastern European nations over the past 6 months have gone up 3 times. So they have 3 times as many people pursuing some sort of higher level degree. So, obviously it's going to take a few years for them to get introduced into the economy, for these skilled workers to become effective within the nation. But in the meantime, they're supporting these institutions and they're still spending their money and whatnot. But we have the economy still running because, like I said before, those lower class workers who are going to have the construction projects and the projects of building up and making those buildings that weren't quite finished and those industries that weren't quite finished productive again. So you've got them holding you over for 3 or 4 years, and then those 3 or 4 years you're going to have those higher educated people getting out of their universities, giving these Eastern European countries a highly educated, highly skilled group of workers. And these highly skilled group of workers can go in and take those businesses and make them really productive. And you're going to have the productive banks, and you're going to have the economy pretty much doing awesome. And as the economy starts to do awesome, they'll understand it's no longer corrupt because the oil prices went down. And you have more educated people who are less likely to become involved in organized crime and whatnot because they have a more productive means of life. They don't have to resort to these illegitimate means. And so basically, I think it's a really good idea right now for people to be investing in Eastern Europe, especially with the stimulus package. Now the question is, who's going to have to pay the stimulus package back? If the Eastern European economies do really well, are the Western European economies going to be like, yeah, you know what, maybe we aren't just giving you money, we want it back, we want interest or whatever. I don't know how it's going to play out in the long run, but I think there's a really good chance right now for the Eastern European economies to really take off, and I think we need to embrace that. Yep.